The day I signed the papers, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from nerves exactly, more like disbelief. Me, Daniel Reed, son of a man who rented his whole life, now holding the keys to a Victorian with a porch wide enough for dreams to sit on. The paint peeled like old memories, and the yard was wild with dandelions. But it was mine. Ours. Lauren stood beside me that afternoon, her fingers laced with mine, her smile soft and tired. Jaden ran circles through the high grass, shouting his new kingdom into being. The house creaked like it had something to say. Every step up those narrow stairs sounded like a throat clearing. But I told myself it was just old bones settling. A man can believe anything if he needs the peace badly enough. I'd spend years fixing other people's engines, hearing the clatter of things that wouldn't start. I wanted silence for once, something steady that didn't depend on my hands. At night, when the trains rumbled past on the south side tracks, the windows trembled a little. Sometimes the hum stayed in the floorboards long after the sound had gone. I liked it at first. It felt alive, the way a body feels when it's breathing deep in sleep. But then, walking across the yard one morning, the hum changed. I swear I felt it through my boots, low and steady, like the earth was remembering something under there. The maple tree stood at the back fence, its roots pushing up through soil dark as coffee grounds. I thought about building a gazebo there, somewhere to sit with Lauren on summer nights. Peaceful. That word had been my compass for years. But when I drove the first stake into the ground, the hammer slipped from my hand. The vibration that ran up my arm felt wrong. Not painful, just personal. I laughed it off, told myself I was tired, told Jaden it was just the ground settling from rain. Still, every time I stepped back there, the air felt heavier. Not dangerous, just aware of me. Like the yard had a memory I wasn't supposed to disturb. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house sighed in the dark, floorboards whispering under their own weight. Lauren's breath rose and fell beside me, steady as a tide. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the trains, the faint hum in the walls, the pulse beneath the land. I thought owning a house meant claiming peace. But peace isn't quiet. It talks back. By dawn, I was outside again, barefoot in the dew, tracing the outline where the gazebo would go. The soil was cold, almost damp enough to stick. I pressed my palm against it and felt the thrum deep below, steady as a heartbeat. That's when I realized I hadn't just bought a house. I'd inherited whatever it was this ground refused to forget. Something under that tree was waiting to be found.
The morning light came in gold and soft, the kind that makes even old wood look forgiving. Jaden was already outside, barefoot in the damp grass, shovel twice his size clutched in his hands. "You said we'd start today, right, Dad?" His voice cracked the quiet open. I smiled, more to steady myself than him. We marked out the square together, 6 feet across, not too deep. He wanted to help, and I wanted to let him. There's something holy about letting your kids see you work for something that's yours. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and lilac, a sweetness that clung to the back of my throat. The shovel bit through the soil easy at first, soft loam and worm tunnels. And halfway through the second hour, the sound changed. A dull thunk. Not metal, not rock, something hollow. Jaden froze mid-swing. "What was that?" he asked. His voice was small but sharp. I crouched beside him, pressing my palm to the ground again. The hum was stronger now, like the land holding its breath. Probably just a root, I said, even though I didn't believe it. I dug carefully, each strike slower than the last. The dirt gave way to something flat, wooden, old, darkened by time. A smell rose up, faint but sure, iron and rot, rain trapped for years. My stomach tightened. Jaden leaned closer, but I caught his wrist. Go inside, bud. Wash up. Tell your mom we'll grill later. He hesitated, eyes flicking between me and the hole. Dad! Go on. My voice came out lower than I meant. He dropped the shovel and ran. When the back door closed, the yard felt too still. I brushed away the last layer of soil with my hands, revealing the sharp edge of a rectangle, corners bound in metal. The wood was grooved, handmade, not factory cut. Whoever built it had cared. I sat back on my heels, breathing through the taste of dirt and dread. It wasn't big, maybe 4 feet long, 2 wide. Not a trunk, not a pipe. It was something else. I stared till the world seemed to narrow to that one shape. Somewhere behind me the wind moved through the maple leaves, whispering like a low chorus. I didn't touch it again that day. Covered the hole with a tarp, laid the shovel across it like a promise. Lauren called from the porch, her voice bright and ordinary. You two done out there? Yeah. I tried to make my voice match hers, but my hands were still trembling. The soil under my nails felt alive, pulsing faintly, like it had a story to tell if I just listened long enough. By dusk, clouds rolled in, heavy and gray. I sat on the steps, watching rain darken the yard, pooling over the spot we dug. The water ran in rivulets down the tarp slope, tracing the edges of that hidden shape. I wanted to believe it was nothing, but I knew better. That wasn't earth down there. It was memory, sealed tight. And now, it was looking back at me.
Dinner was quiet, except for the scrape of forks. Lauren kept looking at me over the rim of her glass, the way she does when she knows I'm holding something back. Jaden was chattering about school, his science project, some robot made from cereal boxes, but his voice felt far away. I nodded, smiled when I could. The smell of cornbread filled the room, but I couldn't taste the thing. When the dishes were done, I slipped out back. The tarp glistened in the moonlight, edges fluttering against the damp grass. Every sound in the yard carried. Crickets, the low hum of streetlights, a far-off train sighing through the city. I told myself I just wanted to check the tarp, make sure the rain hadn't washed it loose. But that wasn't true. The pull in my chest had grown stronger all day, a kind of pressure behind my ribs. Lauren followed me to the porch, arms folded, her robe cinched tight. "You've been out here since yesterday," she said softly. "What's under there, Daniel?" I wanted to tell her, but the words tangled. "Nothing important," I said, too quick. She studied me for a long second, eyes full of that mixture of worry and patience that comes from years of marriage. "Whatever it is, don't carry it alone," she whispered. When she went back inside, the house seemed to inhale, lights winking out one by one until only the yard was lit by the porch bulb. I stood there, feeling that hum again, not in my boots this time, but in my bones. Sleep didn't come easy. The dream started just before dawn. Wet soil, heavy air, a whisper threatened through the dark. I couldn't make out words, only a rhythm, steady and low, like a name being called underwater. I woke with my heart pounding, the room still vibrating faintly. By sunrise, I was back outside, shovel in hand. Dew clung to the grass like beads of sweat. I peeled back the tarp and knelt. My palms pressed into the cold dirt, and the whisper rose again, close now, patient. The shape beneath had dried in places,
wood peeking through like bone. I dug around the edge, careful, reverent, until the top corner was clear. That's when I saw it. Letters etched faintly into the surface, catching the morning light. A single name, half swallowed by mud. Rex. The sound left my throat before I knew it. Half a breath, half a prayer. The name pulsed in the still air, vibrating through the handle of the shovel, through me. Whoever or whatever Rex was, they hadn't been forgotten. Not by the land, not anymore. I sat there until the sun climbed high, feeling the soil pulse beneath my knees like a heartbeat shared between centuries. And I knew this was no accident. Something under that lid was waiting for me to listen.
Rain found me before dawn, soft at first, then steady. I waited under the porch until the light came gray and thin, then stepped into the yard. The tarp sagged under the weight of water, and when I pulled it back, the smell rose up. Earth, rust, and something old enough to carry memory. I knelt, pressed my fingers into the wet soil, and felt it tremble faintly, like it recognized me. The name Rex still glinted on the lid, faint but defiant. I brushed more dirt away, tracing the grooves. My flashlight cut through the rain as I pried at the edge. The wood groaned like it was breathing. When the lid finally shifted, a gust of air escaped. Stale, sweet, unbearable. I gagged, swallowed, kept going. The beam landed on a small collar, curled among bone and soil, the tag still clinging by rusted chain. Canine Rex. Sergeant W. Hayes. The world narrowed to those words. I knelt there, rain sliding down my face, my heartbeat loud in my ears. The bones were clean, arranged careful, curled like sleep, not decay. Whoever buried him had loved him. The fear that had followed me for days dissolved into something else. Not peace exactly, but awe. This wasn't horror. It was devotion buried under time. I lifted the collar gently, mud falling away in small sighs. The metal was cold, but alive with history. I could almost see the man, Hayes, kneeling where I knelt, saying goodbye, maybe whispering, "You did good, boy." Thunder rolled over the neighborhood. The rain thickened, and I covered the grave again, tucking the earth around it like a blanket. My knees sank deeper into the mud, and I let myself feel the weight of it all. The years, the silence, the tenderness of a goodbye that never meant to be found. When I went back inside, Lauren was waiting by the kitchen sink, her robe soaked where she'd leaned against the frame. "What did you find?" she asked. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from knowing it was something sacred. "A dog," I said quietly. "A soldier's dog." She covered her mouth, eyes shining. We stood there, the sound of rain between us. I could feel the hum of the ground, even from here, running through the foundation, through my pulse. That night, I sat by the window, collar on the table, the tag catching the faint light. I thought about Hayes, about what it meant to love something enough to lay it to rest beneath your own home. This wasn't my secret anymore. The land had shared it. Now it was on me to carry it right. But I couldn't stop wondering, who was Sergeant Hayes, and why had he chosen this yard?
I took the collar to work, wiped it clean between oil changes and brake jobs. The letters stayed faint, but readable. Sergeant W. Hayes. The guys at the shop laughed when I told them what I found, said I should call the news, get my 15 minutes. But it didn't feel like a story for strangers. It felt like a hand pressed on my shoulder from long ago. That night, after Lauren and Jaden went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and the collar beside it. The house was quiet, except for the ticking of the wall clock and the whistle of the radiator. I typed his name into every search bar I could find. Archives, veterans lists, old newspapers. At first, nothing. Then, around 2 a.m., an article appeared from 1947. Sergeant William Hayes and his canine partner Rex, heroes of the 761st Military Police Unit, awarded posthumous commendation. Posthumous. The word hollowed me out. I read it twice, and then a third time. Hayes was a black soldier from Cincinnati, decorated for valor in France. The article said he returned home, wounded, his dog gone missing in battle. No mention of burial, no family listed. I kept digging. Property records, census logs, small trails leading back to this same street, this same house. Hayes had owned it once. My house. Our house. The ground out back wasn't random. It was deliberate. A man had brought his friend home the only way he knew how. By morning, I couldn't keep it to myself. I called the local historical society, then a veterans group. My voice shook explaining what I'd found, the dog, the name, the collar. They didn't laugh. One woman whispered, "My God, we've been looking for him." Days blurred after that. Emails, calls, visits. A young historian named Celia came by with gloves and notebooks, her eyes wide as she stepped into the yard. She asked, "You really found them here?" I nodded, feeling both proud and protective. The hole, now neatly covered again, looked like nothing special, but I could feel Hayes in the air, his care, his sorrow, his silence. Lauren brought us lemonade, her face soft with something like relief. For the first time in weeks, she didn't ask what I was doing. She just stood beside me and looked out at the maple. "He lived here," I said quietly. "Before us." She nodded. "Then maybe that's why we found this place." That night, the air in the house felt lighter. The hum had changed, still there, but gentler, like a song sung low. I lay in bed listening to it and thought about all the names we never get to say, all the histories that stay buried because no one bothers to ask the earth what it remembers. Remembering, I realized, is a kind of repair. And silence, that's how things stay broken. The officials said they'd be coming soon to take Hayes and Rex home.
They came on a Saturday morning. 2 military vans, a city historian, and a small crowd of neighbors drawn by curiosity or reverence, maybe both. The air was cool, crisp with spring, the maple trembling in a light breeze. I stood at the edge of the yard, collar in hand as they began to dig. This time, I didn't flinch at the sound of the shovel. Lauren stood beside me, her arm brushing mine, steadying me. Jaden watched from the porch, dressed in his Sunday best. He didn't ask questions anymore. He just looked proud in that quiet way kids do when they sense something bigger than words. When the small coffin came up, mud streaked across its edges, everyone fell silent. The soldiers moved slow, deliberate, as if afraid to wake something sleeping. One of them, an older man with deep lines around his eyes, saluted. "Welcome home, soldier," he whispered. And I swear, the air changed, softer, clearer. The ground itself seemed to exhale. They placed the coffin on a draped table. The historian read from the old article I'd found, her voice trembling as she spoke Hayes's name. Sergeant William Hayes served with distinction in the Second World War. He and his canine partner, Rex, saved the lives of fellow soldiers before being separated by battle. Today, 78 years later, they are reunited. When she finished, she turned to me. "Mr. Reed, you found them. Would you like to say something?" I stepped forward, throat dry. My voice cracked. I just dug a hole. The land did the rest. Laughter rippled gently through the crowd, but it wasn't mockery. It was relief. This house, this yard, it didn't belong to me first. I think it was just waiting for someone to listen. They nodded, and a murmur passed through the group like agreement. Someone began humming "Lift Every Voice and Sing." The melody swelled, small but whole. I closed my eyes, the collar still cold in my hand, and let it wash over me. When the van doors shut and the convoy pulled away, I stayed out there long after the crowd dispersed. The imprint of the coffin lingered in the dirt, but the heaviness was gone. The yard felt open again. The hum in the soil no longer mournful, but steady, like gratitude. Lauren came out and slipped her hand into mine. She said, "You did right by them." I answered, quietly, "No, they did right by us." She smiled, the kind that forgives years of weariness. She said, "They'll have a ceremony soon, a proper burial. You'll speak, won't you?" I nodded, eyes on the maple. Its leaves shimmered in the fading light, almost as if saluting. The past had been carried to the surface, and in letting it go, something new had reckoned. The city was already planning to remember them.
The day of the ceremony dawned bright and still, the kind of morning that carries its own hush. The cemetery stretched wide under the open sky, rows of white stones catching the sun. I stood near the front, collar polished clean, its chain looped around my palm like a vow. The crowd was larger than I expected. Uniforms, families, old veterans in folding chairs, children holding flags they didn't yet understand. When the bugle sounded, the first note felt like it rose from the soil itself. Lauren held Jaden close beside me, their hands linked. I could see her lips moving, the silent prayer maybe. My own eyes stung, and I let 'em. The honor guard lifted 2 caskets, one large, one small, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The speaker, a woman from the Department of Veterans Affairs, talked about forgotten heroes, about service without recognition, but I barely heard her. My focus stayed on the caskets, their polished surfaces reflecting the crowd like water. I thought about Hayes coming home from war, dog gone, metal shining, neighbors pretending not to see him because of the color of his skin. About how he'd buried his only companion quietly right behind his house because some honors were never offered. When they called me to speak, I walked to the podium slowly. My boots crunched on gravel. My heart felt too big for my chest. I'm not a soldier. I fix cars. I come home with grease on my hands, not medals. But a few months ago, my yard reminded me that some things don't stay buried. Not love, not duty, not truth. I looked toward the rows of faces, then at the caskets. People keep asking me how I knew to dig there. I didn't. The land did. I think it was tired of keeping quiet. My voice steadied as I went on. This wasn't broken. It was buried, and it deserves to breathe again. When I stepped back, the applause came soft, respectful. The rifles fired their salute, 3 sharp cracks against the morning. A bugle cried out once more, long and aching. Lauren's hand found mine, squeezing tight. Jaden wiped his eyes without shame. After the ceremony, they let me place the collar on top of Rex's coffin before it was lowered. The metal gleamed against the flag, simple and right. I whispered, "Welcome home," and the wind carried it somewhere I couldn't follow. As the crowd began to drift away, I stayed behind. The air was thick with trumpet echoes and the smell of cut grass. 2 flags fluttered side by side, one for the man, one for the dog who'd loved him past reason. And I realized the story wasn't ending here. because the livin' had work to do too.
By the time summer came back around, the yard felt different, lighter, like it had forgiven itself. The grass grew thick where the coffin once rested, and in its place stood a young oak Jaden planted with both hands, grinning like he'd made something sacred. We called it the memorial tree, but mostly it was just ours. Neighbors stopped by often now, sometimes to talk, sometimes to sit quietly under the branches. Kids left painted rocks at the base, tiny hearts, flags, a bone with Rex scrawled across it. The hum I'd once feared hadn't gone away. It had changed, softer, like the land was humming in contentment. I still work long hours at the shop, but when I come home, I walk the yard before going inside, fingers brushing the bark. The wood's warm even in the cool evenings, as if it carries breath. Lauren says she dreams of Hayes sometimes, him and Rex walking toward the maple line, the dog always just ahead, tail wagging slow. She says they don't look lost anymore. One night I dreamed it too. The air in the dream was golden, like the hour before sunset, and Hayes turned to me, smiling faintly. "You listened," he said. His voice was steady, grateful. Rex barked once, sharp and joyful. Then they kept walking, fading into light until the only thing left was the sound of the wind through the leaves. When I woke, the house was quiet, but the silence felt full, like prayer. Jaden's laughter floated from his room down the hall, and Lauren's voice followed, soft and easy. I sat up, heart steady, and realized something simple. Peace doesn't come from stillness. It grows from what you choose to remember. The city put up a plaque at the cemetery. Sergeant William Hayes and Canine Rex, forever home. I keep a photo of it on my workbench, taped above the pegboard where the wrenches hang. Every so often a customer will ask about it, and I'll tell them the short version, how I found a friend I never met, buried under my backyard. Most just nod, but a few get quiet, the way people do when they recognize something true. On the first anniversary, we held a cookout under the oak. Music, laughter, the smell of ribs and sweet smoke, the kind of sound that reaches the roots. As dusk came, lightning bugs lit up the yard, blinking like small benedictions. Jaden leaned against me and said, "Feels like they're still here." "Yeah," I said. "They always will be." The wind rustled the leaves overhead, and for a moment I could swear I heard that low hum again, steady, proud, alive. The sound of a home remembering what it's made of. Some stories don't stay buried. They grow.